Imagine this. You're walking home alone at night. Streetlights cast long, flickering shadows. Each rustle of leaves makes you jump. You feel a prickle on the back of your neck, an unshakable feeling that someone or something is watching you. You turn around, but there's no one there. This scenario is familiar to many of us. That feeling, the one that makes you glance over your shoulder even when you know you're alone, is more than just paranoia. It's a deeply ingrained instinct, a byproduct of our evolutionary history and the complex workings of our brains. This essay will explore the science behind this common feeling, why we feel watched even when we're not, and how it influences our thoughts and behaviors. To understand why we feel watched, we need to go back to our roots. Our ancestors, living in a world full of predators and dangers, relied on their senses to survive. Their brains evolved to be highly attuned to potential threats, constantly scanning the environment for signs of danger. This fight or flight response is a hardwired survival mechanism. It's what kept our ancestors alive, allowing them to react quickly to threats. This mechanism is still present in us today, even though most of us no longer face the same dangers. Our brains are still wired to be wary, to see patterns where there are none, and to assume the worst in the interest of safety. This is why, even in safe and familiar environments, we can experience that feeling of being watched. Our brains are incredibly powerful pattern recognition machines. They are constantly trying to make sense of the world around us, connecting the dots and finding meaning even in randomness. This ability to find patterns is usually helpful. It allows us to learn from experience, recognize faces, and understand language. However, this ability can also lead to false positives. Our brains sometimes see patterns and threats where none exist. For example, we might mistake a coat rack for a person in the dark, or interpret a random noise as footsteps approaching. These false positives are a natural consequence of our brain's constant vigilance and its eagerness to find meaning in the world. One key player in this feeling of being watched is the amygdala. This small, almond-shaped structure deep within the brain plays a crucial role in processing emotions, particularly fear and anxiety. The amygdala acts as our brain's alarm system. It receives sensory information from the environment and decides whether or not to sound the alarm. When the amygdala perceives a threat, even if that threat is just a shadow or a creaking floorboard, it triggers the release of hormones like adrenaline, preparing our bodies for fight or flight. Our brains are particularly sensitive to certain stimuli that might signal danger. These include sudden movements, unexplained noises, and shadows and darkness. A sudden movement in our peripheral vision can instantly grab our attention, triggering a fear response. This is because our brains are programmed to prioritize movement as a potential threat. An unexpected sound, especially at night or in an unfamiliar environment, can trigger our fight or flight response. Our brains interpret these noises as potential threats until we can identify their source. Our brains are wired to be wary of darkness. In low light conditions, our vision is impaired, making us more vulnerable to potential threats. Shadows can also play tricks on our minds, making us see things that aren't there. These primal fears are a reminder of our evolutionary past, a time when darkness and the unknown held real dangers. For some people, the feeling of being watched can be more intense and frequent. This heightened state of awareness is known as hypervigilance. Hypervigilance is often a symptom of anxiety disorders, post-traumatic stress disorder, and other mental health conditions. People experiencing hypervigilance may feel constantly on edge, as if danger is always lurking. They might be overly sensitive to sounds, movements, and their surroundings. This constant state of alertness can be exhausting and interfere with daily life. Our expectations and beliefs can also influence how we perceive the world around us. If we're told a place is haunted or dangerous, we're more likely to interpret ambiguous stimuli as evidence to support that belief. This is known as confirmation bias, and it plays a powerful role in shaping our perceptions. Our brains tend to seek out information that confirms our existing beliefs, even if that information is inaccurate or misleading. For example, if we're walking alone at night and thinking about scary stories, we're more likely to feel watched and to interpret every rustle of leaves as a sign of danger. The feeling of being watched, even when it's irrational, can have a profound impact on our behavior. It can lead us to avoid certain situations. We might avoid walking alone at night, going to certain places, or engaging in activities that make us feel vulnerable. Be more cautious and vigilant. We might be more aware of our surroundings, constantly checking over our shoulder and avoiding eye contact with strangers. Change our appearance or behavior. We might dress in ways that make us feel less conspicuous, or modify our behavior to avoid attracting attention. These behavioral changes are often unconscious, driven by our innate desire to stay safe and avoid potential threats. The feeling of being watched is a common human experience. It's a testament to the power of our brains, our evolutionary history, and the complex interplay of biology, psychology, and environment. While this feeling can be unsettling, it's important to remember that it's usually harmless. Understanding the science behind it can help us to rationalize our fears, manage our anxiety, and navigate the world with a little less fear of the unseen. So, the next time you feel a prickle on the back of your neck, take a deep breath. Remind yourself that you're safe, and acknowledge the incredible power of your brain to keep you vigilant, even when there's no real danger lurking in the shadows.